Hello and welcome to the employee meeting here for the fourth quarter at Lancaster. Before we get going today, just like to talk a little bit about us doing the meeting format a little bit different than we have in the past, and the times that we're having the meetings being different. Right now, as with every month, making our numbers, hitting our production and shipments, and hitting our financials are always critical. But with this quarter, this month, is even more important to hit it. If we do not hit our numbers here in October, we stand a chance of actually missing the entire fourth quarter. So with that, that's why we're handling these meetings differently. We're running a lot more pieces of equipment so that we can move metal through the plant. And we'll be catching those employees up later through some videos so that they can get the information as well, because this is important information to share with everyone. As always, like to start with safety and really talk about molten metal safety and potentials for explosions. We always talk about making sure we don't put the wrong material in scrap tubs. Only scrap goes in scrap tubs. What are the procedures? And we've also talked about plants that have had explosions or the potential for explosions. But knowing that most people in the plant don't really truly understand what a molten metal explosion is. So here on this video, this is a live, not a live video, but this is a video from our plant in Brazil, Itapsuma, Brazil. Employee charging a furnace, and there was a explosion as a result of this charge. So you can really see the impact and the hazard that our coworkers and friends in the cast house go through or are faced with every day, and how we can impact that. So when we talk about, let's make sure we put trash in trash bins. We only put scrap in scrap bins. We don't bring bottles into the plant. We don't bring Coke cans into the plant. Those are why we have these rules. The cast house has rules on what they need to do to inspect the scrap, what they need to do, make sure they're not charging wet scrap, how the furnace should be set up before they charge. This is all why we have these rules and these countermeasures in place, is to reduce the risk and reduce this kind of incident or potential for fatality, and actually reducing it to a very low level. In this case here in Itapsuma, things were handled properly. The employee backed away, got out of harm's way, made sure everything was safe, and then exited his fork truck. The fork truck, the enclosure was good. Everything was in good shape, and this employee was unharmed. Unlike explosion similar to this earlier this year, which happened in Kofem in Hungary, where the employee actually panicked and jumped out of the truck and then tripped and fell and put his hands out to catch his fall, but his hand went on hot metal that had solidified on the ground, and he received very serious burns to his hands. So just a reminder to everyone, as we talk about safety, let's do all the right things, and let's not set ourselves up or our coworkers up for an injury or a major incident. And now, speaking about EH&S, doing really good on injury frequency. We're at a 0.72 recordable injury rate right now against a 0.87 target, so slightly below that. And then on our DART rate, doing extremely well with a 0.119 against a 0.2 target. So good progress. So we are seeing hazards. We are abating risks. We are stopping. But then again, this message right above that box, that absence of injuries doesn't mean it's the absence of risk. So we go back to that video we just talked about, is that there are risks. There are a lot of risks in this plant. We're in a manufacturing environment, heavy industry environment, and those risks are out there. So it's all about identifying them, stopping if we see something that's wrong, correcting it, and then doing our job safe. Looking out for ourselves and looking out for our coworkers. Perfect example of this is with Ed Doffenbaugh. These kinds of stops I'm seeing and hearing more and more of around the plant. But what this is where Ed, who wasn't even part of the crew, it wasn't his job, but he noticed something that was wrong, and he stepped in, corrected it, and prevented an incident, potentially prevented a injury from happening. He saw that the employee was trying to pick up a heavy load, a 30,000-pound load. It was a motor, it was in a rack, but he noticed that the pockets for the forks were not in the right place for the load center of what was being picked up, because he saw the lifting eye and where it was on this motor. If the employee would have continued to pick up that load using those pockets, there was a high probability that the load would have shifted, tilted, could have either dropped the motor and or turned a fork truck over. So Ed responded, stopped the employee, and then they actually did the right lifting technique, right rigging technique to make this move, and then continued the job safely. So appreciate Ed doing that, and we have more of those happening around the plant, and that's how we actually, as people here, employees here in Lancaster, continue to drive our injury frequencies down. We have that gut feel something's not right. Let's stop and do it correctly. Now moving on to Q3 and talking a little bit first about PFP. We'll cover some of this in more detail as we go on into the presentation. As you can see from the plant-wide payout, 70% of the plant-wide payout, we've only paid out at 0.51%. Missed in 2 of the 3 plant-wide categories, missed in manufacturing cost per pound, missed in delivery performance, but we did achieve claims PPM, and so the plant-wide total is 0.51. If you go across the plant, we range from 1.41% payout to 2.55% payout. So departmental payouts are good. They're adding to the total payout, so appreciate everyone's help. We are hitting the team maturities. Areas are getting credit there. We are making the production numbers and moving that into the payout. Where we still have the opportunities, which I've talked about in previous meetings on DI, we have some teams that are at 0 and not having any DI payouts, some that are barely into the money, and some that are hitting their targets. So there's still a lot of opportunity where people can identify savings, have ideas, what can it save the plant, and that goes into your departmental numbers. It will help raise your DI score and add to your PFP payout. Then once we start implementing these ideas, what they do is they offset costs. They reduced our costs. Then it comes up and it ties into this top line up here around manufacturing cost per pound. So you can see that the threshold is 97%, and we came in just slightly under that percentage. We're at 96.5. So a few things, some small things, we'll be talking about this, small things that we can do every day in our job have a big impact, especially when all these small things add up. So we were close. We just missed. We paid out on the manufacturing cost per pound in the first 2 quarters. We missed it here in Q3. Things that are hurting us, scrap and scrap spreads. I'll talk about that, or we'll talk about that more in the meeting. And when we talk about scrap spreads, it's how much we have to sell our unusable scrap for. Typically, in past several years, it's been around 17 cents. So every pound of scrap we lose, we would sell, we would lose 17 cents. We build that into our plan. This year, the scrap market has really turned and gone ugly, and we're right now averaging for this year like 48, 49 cent scrap spreads. Most recently, we sold some scrap for 60 cents. So that means for every pound of scrap we sell, we lose 60 cents. A lot of our brazing scrap, our mixed scrap, we can't use back into our process. We have to sell that. So when you see all this scrap piled up around the plant, it's because we're trying to balance when's the right time to sell scrap. If it's too much of a loss, we're holding it. So that scrap spread reduces and it's not as bad, then we do sell it. That's why you're seeing this scrap piling up. And there's some other things that we're facing too. Trucking costs have gone up. They're running about 0.5 cent per pound, higher than previous years. So if you think about, we sell or ship 45 million pounds a month. Well, that's over $200,000 per month more in expenses that we're having that we were not anticipating. Gets right back to DIs. As we identify DIs, as we implement them, they start reducing our costs, and it offset these headwinds that are driving our cost higher. So a lot of work there that we can do. We'll talk about it more, but really need to focus in on the little things. So going to that and talking about little things, we look here on quality and on claims. So if you look at the target, $668,000, just think about that. To hit the plan, to hit the target PFP, we plan to give back to our customers $668,000 in a quarter. That just doesn't feel right when you think about it that way, when you get it away from the PPM metric. We actually gave back $738,000. So we came in at 2870 on PPM. If you go back and look at the PPM payout, the threshold is 2871. Lower the number, the better. We came in at 2870. We came in and made that 0.51% payout by 1 part per million. Just think about that. 1 part per million was the difference in a payout on PFP or 0 payout on the plant-wide PFP. So little things can make a difference. So if you look at this stop here by John in Mill Finishing, great example of little things that you may not think make a difference, but they do make a difference. And when these add up around the plant, it can make a big difference. John here came in. He noticed that the corner sample or that the coil was not correct, that the corner sample sparked from the night shift. The crew listed it as 003 on both sides, but the production card read 4104 on one side. There was a mismatch there. So John actually put the coil on hold. We were able to identify what the correction was, what the corrective action was. That prevented a claim. If we would have shipped that out to a customer, especially a product, this is a clad product, so it's high revenue, it would have been a large claim coming back. That would have cost us more than 1 part per million, and it would have taken us, this one act would have taken us, or not following through on this one act would have taken us from a payout in claims to no payout in claims. So these kind of things we have to look at and catch every day around the plant to allow us to improve. You look down here in the lower left-hand corner, we have some key claims here with Denso. We're working with them so they can get better edge quality. We have a very large claim with them. But if you look at these two, customer order entry error, customer service, and planning error. So those kind of things hit us on the floor, but even though we may think they're outside of our control, but it's looking at the little things. What is the actual coil? What does the production card say? Let's make sure everything matches up. And when they don't, let's catch it, let's stop it, let's pull on our help chain, and let's get it corrected. We're spending a lot of time and money around the plant right now trying to improve our traceability, trying to take the human element and the potential for human errors out. So we've got barcoding going in on ingot. We've now got it working on liner, and we're still continuing to get that to work on the coil end. Once we have that, we'll reduce those errors where you end up transposing a number, and then you pull the wrong coil and you run the coil to the wrong spec. So work is being done to try to prevent these types of errors from coming in, but do the little things. Make sure what you're running, the coil is the right coil, the ingot's the right ingot, everything matches up, and then once it does, let's process it. So doing the little things like John did does go a long way. Now I'd like to wrap up my section of the employee meeting on Texarkana. I'm sure by now everyone has heard that Arconic is selling the Texarkana plant. But I just not go through all the details on the sale, but if you look down at the bottom two bullets on this page, at the very bottom is that Arconic's going to continue to operate the cast house for the next 18 months. So on part of the deal in the sale is that we will keep the cast house. All the employees in the cast house will remain Arconic employees for 18 months. That means the 260 million pounds that Texarkana is going to cast next year, That will be coming to Lancaster, and that will be coming to Davenport. We will continue to have those metal units. After the 18-month period, then the employees in the cast house become employees of TCI, Ta-Chen International. However, if Arconic needs the metal, we can continue to buy from the Texarkana plant. So it will still be important to us here at Lancaster in the future. Now, the line that's right above that says that Arconic employees are going to assist with construction and restart of the plant. They are not rolling people. They're learning how to roll. We will be teaching them. We spent and had an R4A approved for $13.6 million to restart the finishing end. They will repay us. They will pay that $13.6 million back to us after the finishing end is started up. And in addition, if you read the announcement that they are buying the plant for $300 million, and there is a $50 million incentive. So this plant's going to start up in 3 phases. Finishing the $13.6 million is phase 1. We start that up successful. Arconic, they pay Arconic $5 million. Then we start up cold rolling and some additional finishing equipment. Once we're successful in starting that up, they will pay us $20 million. Then we will start up hot rolling, the preheats and the scalper. Once that's successful and up and running, they will pay us an additional $25 million. That's where you get the $50 million incentives. And we're really focusing in on how do we get the entire plant started up within the next 2 years, within the next 24 months. And let's pull that $50 million into Arconic and let us benefit from that. Now, you think about why did we sell this plant? Well, TCI was going to buy a plant in North America. They weren't going to build one. It's going to take too long to build one. So they were going to buy a plant in North America. So if they found a plant and bought it, we would still have Texarkana. It would be sitting there as an idled mill, and we would have missed out on $350 million. Second thing is that Arconic is going to be moving more and more to higher end kinds of products. So we're going to be moving more into automotive and aerospace. Aerospace doesn't affect us much here at Lancaster, but the automotive does. So we're going to be making more automotive. We're going to be continue to make clad products, and we're going to make the higher end common alloy products. We're going to push higher on painted. We're going to push higher on the hard to make products. What the Texarkana plant is going to do is focus on the common specs: 5052, 3003, standard gauges, and standard width, 36, 48, 60 wide, and they're going to do that. Second thing is, if you really look at Texarkana, since we're going to be going more toward the higher end products, Arconic, we're not going to put any more money into the plant. Very competitive for the dollars, and Lancaster wants dollars. So does Lancaster get it or Texarkana get it? Lancaster would get it before Texarkana. So they weren't going to start up any more than a little bit of equipment we've already said we were going to start up. So the plant wasn't going to be fully operational. Tai-Chen is going to put $60 million into that plant and restart the entire plant. And that will get them back up to 300, 350 employees operating that plant. So it's good for the employees, it's good for the community, it's good for Texarkana area to be fully employed. So when you really think about it, it's the right thing to do. So they're not going to be competitors of us where some people think they may cut our throats or it may be the end of us. No, that's not it. There's some different directions in which their company is heading and the direction in which Arconic is heading. So again, they would have bought a plant somewhere in the U.S. We'd have still been sitting on Texarkana. We would have had the assets and not running it. This way, we're going to get $350 million. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Jason Miles, Maintenance Manager. So I want to talk a little bit about our third quarter delivery performance. As you can see here in this chart, we've struggled this year to get above to our goal of 90%, only hitting that once this year. The backlog has increased from 4.8 to 5 million during September, and we had 620 orders missed in September alone due to late production. Daily customer expedites is continuing to lead to inefficient production center schedules as we're trying to meet our customers' expectations, but yet we're having performance issues that are not allowing us to do that. We wanted to just continue to highlight the great work that teams are doing, going an extra mile to help support our customer. Wall to wall, you see here, saw a coil that had 5 laps that was oscillated. He contacted his team support and quality storing point, and they contacted Mill Finishing so that the coil could be trimmed to the paint line and repacked so that it could be shipped to the customer in time to meet their expectations. So we do appreciate the work that everyone's doing to help in this space, and we'd like to get everyone to continue to do so. So to continue on the spirit of teams in and out of the plant, we'd like to highlight here the tandem mill payoff coolant pit reclamation. We had a team of 4 people, Gene Gobrick, Greg Dommel, Kelly Culp, and Don Lowe, come together, and they created a solution to generate $74,000 in savings to the plant. So we'd like to thank that group. Additionally, we've had even more ideas being generated for DIs, both in SMART as well as in shot put contests that we had this year. Over 134 ideas were generated in Lancaster for almost $14 million just on SMART alone. And we need your continued support to continue to get more ideas out on the table for us to get additional cost savings as we move into 2019. Additionally, in the community, our ERG groups are working hard to make an impact. So we see here in this photo to the right, Jason Belly with the Arconic Veterans Network worked to pull together a volunteer team to go clean the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. So it was awesome to see the faces of the veterans as they came up and they thanked us for the great work that we were doing to help restore that monument and restore the memory of their fallen comrades. So we do appreciate all the work that everybody's doing inside and out of the plant as it relates to teams, and look forward to highlighting additional contributions in future communications meetings.
Third quarter department achievements. Below is a list of departments and things that they worked on to help continue the success of the Lancaster plant. I would like to highlight a couple here listed below. Mill Finishing, step change at number 9 Slitter. They were able to achieve 610,000 pounds on average a day over the last 4 months. This increased their par day rate by 23%. Cast House was able to produce 664,000 pounds ahead of plan last quarter. Why this is important is because for every pound that we can make in-house, it saves us 7 cents from going out and purchasing it on the open market. Plate Mill overshipped plan by 200,000 pounds. Pack Ship set a record for best shipments in July at 45.3 million pounds. And the coal mills produced over 1.1 billion pounds year to date, which is a record high rate. One thing to point out here under the coal mills is the good work that D Crew did. They were able to work as a team. They did a PSA 3 on sampling times at the Hunter. If you know anything about cold rolling, you do a lot of sampling of what you're rolling because you want to make sure you're meeting the customer quality specifications for surface. So with that sampling comes a lot of downtime. The team was able to take a 5+ minute per sample time down to 3 minutes. And I know 2 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the number of samples they run, they were able to reduce downtime or gain production time, touch time, by 6 hours, which has the potential capacity gain of 2 million pounds a month. Scrap marking is very important in the plant. The cast house is receiving back over 20 million pounds of metal from each of your departments. It's really important that we mark this scrap correctly, because when the cast house goes to make charges, let's say they're making 50-52, they're going out there, they have a program called Keystone that tells them what to go out and pick. So when they're out picking scrap for those charges, they go out and they're going off the labels that you pick. So when they stage that at a melter, they're going to charge that into a melter. If something is marked wrong, it can cause an OA, which is off analysis. Let's say we were making 50-52 and you actually marked the scrap 50-52, but it was 3003. That manganese could actually OA that mag alloy. On average, the cast house spends about $10,000 to fix an OA, and it can lead to lost production. I've seen production anywhere from 4 to 12 hours we lose on the melter, so that means for 4 to 12 hours we're putting money in there to try to correct the chemistry on that alloy. Plus, we're not producing metal at that time, which leads to promised performance issues and other issues in the plant. There are a couple things that can help you when scrap marking. One is the plant SOP 11803. That is a scrap marking SOP that has all the alloys that we make in the plant, and it will tell you what alloys can fit under what master family. So it really gives you a good tool to mark the alloys correctly. You always have production cards too. You can get them off the PCBs and mark the alloy correctly. Another thing, if you're in doubt and you don't know what to do, please stop and get your help chain involved. You always have the option, if you need, to call the cast house. They can come out with a portable portaspec or spectrometer, shoot that, and they can tell you the alloy. Or if they're not available, you can take it back to the quant lab. They can spark it and they will tell you the alloy. That way we make sure we're marking scrap right, and it all comes back to the cast house marked correctly. Just want to point out here to make an extra effort to prevent mismarked scrap. That's Dan Hilton pictured there. He's the ops leader at Plate Mill. Hot mill employees were assisting plate and the cast house receiving with moving 5,000 alloy hoppers to plate's scrap storage area. The list of alloys moved to plate expanded to clad alloys. Dan Hilton recognized that there was a potential for alloys to get mixed, and Dan worked with the hot mill employees, and together they prevented from mixing scrap, which is key to both cast houses.
I'd like to continue our conversation on our third quarter performance. So overall for GRP, we missed our forecast by $20 million. All GRP locations, including Lancaster, were underperforming last quarter, and that's why it's really important for us to continue to drive results this quarter. So, interestingly enough, Lancaster is on pace for a record year in volume, but not our financials. There's been a lot of things that's been impacting that, and we'll go over a few things here so everybody understands. Our tariffs continue to have a positive and negative impact on our business. So the positive thing is more customers want to buy, but unfortunately the Chinese no longer want to buy the scrap, which is getting our scrap spreads much wider than they were ever before. Scrap prices are very erratic and unfavorable, and we want to buy high and sell low, but now we're holding scrap, and you can see that across the whole facility as we're putting scrap at the plate mill and up in the farmer's field lot. It's really full with scrap being stashed everywhere because we just can't afford to sell it. Trucking surcharges are now affecting the bottom line as trucking capacity is diminished, and these new digital logs have come in place, requiring truck drivers to stop at a certain hours, and they can't continue until they have a certain amount of hours off. It's all electronically tracked, and now they can't violate those rules. And in Airstream, we lost about $500,000 in 2 months with recovery losses. And in our physical inventory, we had to write off $900,000 due to not taking care of invoicing some of our materials coming into the plant. So the next steps to help counter these ideas is we're delaying outages and we're moving some of our capital projects into early 2019. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So in the fourth quarter, we moved 5 capital projects to save $800,000 to the bottom line to help Lancaster hit its goals this year. So the hot mill outage for Q4, it went from a 6-day outage to get just the duck and roll. Number 11 slitter, we delayed the new leveler. The plate number 1 holder melter, we delayed the rebuild of those furnaces. And number 13 preheat furnace, we delayed that as well. Additionally, the paint line, the oven, roof, and electrical drives replacement, we pushed that off to next year as well to help support the plan and help Lancaster hit its goals. But we did consider some other outages and kept those in place. So the hot mill quarterly outage, number 9, and the cold mills and number 9 Sitter Crane, we actually moved forward with those because they were linked to safety issues that needed to be addressed in order for us to remain compliant to our EHS goals and values. So we continue to move forward with those things, and we got a few other things sprinkled in with these outages to help us save costs. Additionally, the heavy gauge press was a safety priority as well, and we move forward with that job. So it's really important that everybody understands we're working hard and we need your additional help as we look for additional levers for improvement as we move into 2019.
Hello, this is John Need. I'd like to talk to you about our goals for next year. As you can see on the top of this slide, we're committing to ship 576 million pounds. That will be 564 million pounds of sheet with about 12.6 million pounds of plate volume. Now 564 is a big step over where we're going to be this year. This year we're going to ship 525 million pounds, which is a record year. But we'll top that record year with an increase of 39 million pounds up to 564 million pounds. So record year after record year and solid growth in our Lancaster site. You can also see here that 564, well, that's about 7.5%. The paint volume is going to grow up to 75.7 million pounds. So 17.2 million pounds of growth there. So paint's growing even larger than the overall sheet volume is. So some good growth on some high margin products for us there. We're not going to grow our volume indiscriminately. We're trying to be intelligent about where we grow it and how we grow it so that we can maintain safety, maintain quality, and get our service levels on where we want them to be so the PFP is solid and repeatable and our customers are happy with our product. To do that, we're controlling our brazing sheet production. Brazing sheet is not going to grow from 2018 to 2019. Same number being shipped every week, year over year. That allows us to grow some of the things that flow through the plant faster, such as the painted volume or some of the other mill finish products, where we get good revenue and we get good margin, but we don't have to spend as much time in the processing steps. We actually sat down and looked at all of the product offerings and looked at the margin we get off of the products and the losses we take for them, from both in time and in scrap yields that we have to take material losses on if we have scrap left over that has to be sold and it is unusable back in our processes. And used all of that information to calculate models and pick the products we want to sell and suppress the growth to actually even eliminating customers that we don't want to sell to so we can maximize our effort and our return on the hard work that we're doing. All of that work really is being fed into the model that now will show us at 564 million pounds. One of the things that led us to thinking about the plant this way is if you look at this chart on the right, we had our record production year, our prior record production year in 2011 when we shipped 508 million pounds. Now this year we're going to ship 525, and you say, hey, there's good growth year over year, but it took us 10 years to get there, or 8 years to get there. In all the subsequent years, you can see the blue line being the volume, that it was down, but it didn't feel like things were easier the prior 8 years. What you see in the orange and yellow lines is if we look at the linear feet processed during that year to ship that ship volume, the linear feet to ship product every year was going up while our volume was going down. So that's a harder and harder mix that we had to produce to ship less and less material. So what you can see is for this year at 525 versus that baseline year, it's about a 3% growth driven in just sales. That's hard work by our commercial group. There's a furthermore growth just due to mix. And the last part all being covered through hard work of another 20% driven by improvements and changes that we're making in operations to allow growth and facilitate all these extra pounds being shipped and processed on a linear basis. So that's really the time consumed at every one of the PCs. So because this work is so much higher, and when we run that out to 564 million pounds, it'll be even more work. We're doing things to control the production. So we're controlling the brazing sheet. That's not going to grow year over year. We're going to reduce the light gauge clat, so the product that spends even more time in the cold mill coming down to final gauge. And also, we're going to take the hold back, where this year we take 200,000 pounds a week that we don't allow to be booked until we're ready to release it. And we're going to take the number from 200,000 per week to 700,000 pounds per week to better allow us to control and regulate the demand on the mill so that we can stay in a better service position. In addition to that 700,000 pounds, the 39 million pounds of growth that are slated to occur next year, taken from the 525 up to the 564, is also going to be held back and released only when we've demonstrated the ability to ship at those rates. So we will have in our two pockets both a weekly holdback that is there to feather service and flow interruptions, as well as a growth holdback that will be released when we've demonstrated or implemented the projects that are driving that growth. On this next slide, you can see a list of some of the projects that are driving the bigger portions of the growth. Things like the new leveler up on number 11 will allow for higher line speed on level products in the heavy gauge range. We've done a lot of work on number 9 to increase our uptime and our ability to process pounds through number 9. There's also some capital equipment being installed right now that will help drive throughput there. We'll be doing a couple projects in the cold mill next year, up on the Hunter in particular, to help increase our speed and our ability to get material through that PC. The shipping lot's going to be expanded, so we have fewer loads that are no-shows, so we can do a better job of guaranteeing our customer the truck will pick it up and deliver when we say it will. We're going to work on our quality with some reductions. We're going to increase the gauge on the number 12 line to give us better ability to flex between 9 and 12. And while it's not purely growth alone, we're going to be doing some projects out in the cast house to improve agitation and the melt rates out there to allow us to source less ingot, which generally gives us more flexibility, because if we're making more ingot here on site, we're in better control of our own destiny and better able to service customer and react when things need to change. But at the same time, it also will save us money by not having to purchase and pay market price for ingot. All of those projects are timed throughout 2019, leading to small incremental changes from exiting this year at a 10.7 million pound per week rate all the way up to 11.65 by Q4 of 19. So it doesn't all hit in January, it's spread out across the year as the projects are slated to go live and be implemented. Another nice story about Lancaster for next year is if you look at our capital spend from 2018, we're on track to spend about $11.6 million with no significantly large projects being spent in Lancaster. In 2019, however, you see us moving up to $20.3 million, so almost double our capital spend with projects such as the ones in the cast house that I mentioned. You see the ones in rolling that are primarily in the cold mills, and a couple of projects in finishing, driving the gauge on number 12 and the work on number 11. All those projects being tied into growth in the plant, in addition to the same amount of yearly spend on that base rate of money. So good investments into Lancaster, good investments into our future, and our ability to service our customers and deliver on the commitments we've made to the business. Thank you.